The most common question I am asked on the golf course, whether it's by people who played with me for years, people who just met me, people in the golf world, it doesn't matter who they are. The question I'm most frequently asked on the golf course is if I'm still wearing my Sqairz, or if I am wearing Sqairz in the first place. And that's because I do wear Sqairz. And the answer is I do wear my Sqairz. I love Sqairz, and I've been using them for almost 4 years now. And I wear these shoes because they work for me. And so as the brand has grown and evolved, we were one of the first people, the first channels to do a review on Sqairz shoes. And I said back then, what I believe still holds true now, is that these are a great pair of shoes. They are extremely comfortable and they really perform well. And so I wanted to come back and do a review, do a video years later into wearing Sqairz about why I like the shoes, why I still love them, still wear them, and still make them the most commonly worn shoe that I have in my repertoire. And you've seen me do bunches of videos on golf shoes on this channel over the years. But Sqairz is the brand I've stuck with. So let's talk about why. First, squared off toe is actually quite comfortable. I have a wider foot. I have a wider foot base up here. Maybe not so much at the back, but definitely in the front. And what that squared off toe allows for is actually more room for your foot to sit. And that's not just a comfort thing, as it turns out. It turns out to be a performance thing. Because if your foot can lay flat, then your foot has better ground contact. Now obviously your foot's not touching the ground when you swing, but the way that your foot lays in your shoe is about as close as you're going to get to ground contact. So if your foot kind of lays really bunched together or kind of moves a little bit awkwardly, then you're not going to move as efficiently because your whole foot can't move throughout the swing as it rocks, depending on your left foot or your right foot, lead and trail foot. And so if you're able to move better, more fully, then you can be more powerful. You have a better connection with the ground. You can push off on the ground better, which helps you use ground force to build more stability and speed. And as you accelerate through the ball, if you can make that turn better and make that weight shift better because your foot is better positioned to do so, then all of a sudden you are a more efficient swinger of the golf ball or golf club, and you're a more efficient hitter of the golf ball. And if you're doing that, that means you're hitting better shots. And the research from Champ Spikes, they went and did some research in the field at Pinehurst with some players, and it turns out that the research basically netted 3 to 4 more yards per shot in spike shoes, and that doesn't mean just square shoes, but spike shoes compared to spikeless shoes. And if you add that up over the course of a round, that's cutting off quite a good bit of the golf course, and that's on the average. If you are a better player or a more powerful player, that may be closer to 5 yards a shot. If you don't hit it quite as far, maybe it's closer to 2.5 or 3 yards a shot. Maybe it's 2 yards a shot. But if you add that up over all the non-putts that you have over the course of a round, you might be cutting off several hundred yards of the golf course, or adding length to several hundred yards to the golf course if you're wearing spikeless shoes. Then poor stability, so it leads to what's called pronation. So if you're wearing a shoe that has poor stability, when you swing, your foot might kind of fall out on the inside or the outside. So it might just fall out over the edge of the shoe. Well, that creates less stability. Now you have to recover in the swing, and as you do that, you lose efficiency, you lose stability, you lose the quality of contact. And even if that's fractions, and that's mostly what we're talking about here, are fractions. We're not talking like, oh, you followed the shoe and you can't hit the ball. But fractions add up over the course of 70 shots, 80 shots, 90 shots, 100 shots. And it doesn't matter what kind of caliber golfer you are, fractions of performance just tend to add up over time. And so if you can be just a little bit better, because this shoe is got a wider base, it's more stable, which means if it's more stable, your foot's less likely to pronate over the edge, if ever, and that means you can be a more efficient swinger of the club. That's going to make you a better golfer, plain and simple. And obviously having a wide base with plenty of spikes and also plenty of ground control elements, ground traction elements, is tremendously helpful. They've actually turned Sqairz into baseball spikes. The folks at Sqairz have developed a spike with the folks at Louisville Slugger. Major League Baseball players are wearing Sqairz spikes this year because they've realized having the same kind of control you have in a golf swing, in a golf situation, wearing you use the ground. Well, guess what? You do in baseball too. And their ability to hit the ball as far as they can is a really key part of modern baseball. And so, being able to hit the ball with more exit velocity, which has been scientifically demonstrated by wearing Sqairz in the baseball shoe, so it's not just like golf spikes, it's got baseball spikes, but that allows players to hit the ball longer, more consistently. Well, that's great if you're trying to hit home runs. So there are tons of major leaguers who are taking advantage of what Sqairz has developed. Now these are the speed bolts. I liked the very bold lime green color because I like to wear somewhat, not loud, but I like having lots of different accents in my golf fashion. So I don't like to wear just like 3 colors. I like little touches of color or splash of color. Obviously see that in this hoodie. Stuff like that. That's just little things. Not so in your face that I look like a highlighter, but just enough. And I really like this because I tend to wear white shoes. So touches of lime green makes sense for me. And you may like a different version of Sqairz. If you like the bolds, you may like the black and white version where the leather's white, lettering's black. You might like a blue version. They have a red version, orange version. Whatever your choice. Hey, that's up to you. But these shoes are extremely comfortable. The leather is great. It's waterproof. I've never got my feet wet wearing Sqairz. I really like that. The stay put laces are tremendous. So we'll kind of show them a little bit closer to the camera, but you can see that there are these silicone elements all along the pieces of the laces. And that allows them to stay in place better than just tying them alone, which is extremely helpful. I do hope someday they come out with like a dial system version. I love BOA. They don't have a BOA version of this shoe yet. I hope that comes someday, but it is extremely comfortable the way that it is. And what I also really like is the collar padding here. So I feel like they beefed that up a little bit over the original versions of the shoe. But the collar padding is tremendous because that means you're very unlikely to blister. It sits up higher on my heel, so I'm not in a position where it feels like it's going to cut into the back of my foot. They wear in very easily, like 1 or 2 rounds, probably 1. It's really 1 for me, but most people 1 or 2 rounds wear in really well, and all of a sudden feels like it knows your foot. It has plenty of padding in the midfoot, responsive padding. It's not like the kind that gives you like all the energy back, and there's actually a scientific reason for that. While it's extremely comfortable padding, this style of padding is meant to give you some energy back, but not all of it, because if it absorbs energy on the way back, it's absorbing it into the ground. So if it's absorbing it into the ground, you can't use the ground quite as well. You're not getting as much out of it. So there's a little bit of give, plenty of give in this to be comfortable, but not total give to the point that you might be losing or leaving a few yards on the table. I want something that's not like wearing a pair of army boots, but I want something that I know it's there. I know it's on my foot because I don't want to really ever feel like I'm going to slip. I swing hard on every shot, at least the ones that are full swing shots. And so I want to make sure I feel as much comfort as I can while at the same time feeling like I know I can do exactly what I need to do with my golf swing and not worry about slipping or my equipment letting me down. This doesn't let me down. It allows me to do what I do and really enjoy it. Yes, it's a little heavy. Yeah, I guess compared to some golf shoes, but I wore Tour 360s for years and they were a heavier shoe. I still have some Echo spikes from like 12 years ago that were pretty heavy. Maybe I like a heavier shoe. Maybe you like a heavier shoe. But if you are walking the golf course, I've walked with these plenty of times. These and the other like 5 versions of Sqairz that I have. And I have never felt more tired because I walked with Sqairz compared to another version of shoe. And if you're riding a cart, it doesn't really make a difference anyhow. What I also really like is that you get free spike replacement for life. You send them a request for more spikes, they'll get you new ones. Get fresh ones in, you're in good shape. And they take care of their customer base really well. Performance-wise, it is a tremendous shoe. And it really does the job. And they hold up well over time. I don't slip in them. I feel confident wearing them. They're comfortable. They're easy to put on. It just all works for me, which is the big answer to why I wear Sqairz. I still wear Sqairz, and I will continue to wear Sqairz. Just want to kind of go through everything on Sqairz because I get so many questions and comments about it. And some of them are snarky and some of them are genuine. And so I just kind of wanted to address them all in one single video because yes, 4 years later, I'm still wearing Sqairz and very happy with my choice to do so. If you have any comments about Sqairz or other golf shoes, questions, please leave a comment. Get in touch with me. Happy to get back to you. Happy to answer any thoughts that you might have on any piece of equipment, and hopefully help you play a little bit better golf and have a better time out there. I'm Ryan Ballengee. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.